So 2 months ago, I said I was going to do these interviews or conversations with people that are influential in my life, or who have these interesting stories, and I did it. I spent the last month or so recording these interviews, and this is the first one. And I want to introduce this person to you guys, but it's someone who, if you know me, you definitely know who they are, because it's one of the most influential people in my entire life. I met her when I was 18 years old, so someone I've known my entire adult life. She has taught me so much about a lot of things, especially spirituality, and especially about embracing and loving this darkness within. She does a lot of different things. She does dance fitness, she does tarot readings. She just generally is just an artist, someone who creates, and also the fellow co-host of the Honestly Delusional podcast. But this person is really someone who I think a lot of people can learn a lot from. Someone who is just generally connected with themselves and who understands the balance in life between light and dark, who really knows how to embrace that darkness and love it. And someone who taught me a lot about self-love. Without further ado, I want to introduce to you guys my first guest.
Here's Paula. So I brought Paula on first for many reasons. One, because obviously we do the podcast together. And the second reason is because if I'm going to compare influential people in my life, I mean, should I just give you the number one spot?
Well, you said it, not me. Although I'm always like, technically I feel as though I was your spiritual mother somehow. Although, not at all, because your mom's awesome and she's like, an awkward instantly, and I'm like, wait, no. Yeah.
So now, okay, Mom.
No.
Challenge accepted. No, I'm kidding. But we've talked about that before, obviously. And
yeah.
Turns out that I'm actually your mentor. So it doesn't really matter. Spiritual mother, whatever. Your son shouldn't be your mentor, Paula. But anyway, I brought Paula on first, also because literally, Paula's just used to this. Paula's in front of a camera with me. And to talk about influential part, for those of you who don't know the relationship that her and I have, we've been friends for 12 years now. Coming up on 12 years. That's our entire adult life. So you could imagine the growth levels and the changes and the ups and downs that have been in our friendship. Because to be friends for 12 years, and I mean, you probably know this too, to be in any relationship for that long takes a lot of work.
Yes.
And the first thing I wanted to really talk about was relationships. One, because you're in a relationship with Luis, who's also bestie, and you've been in a relationship with him for how many years now?
13.
13 years.
Yeah.
My God.
Wait.
You old. So 13 whole years. And also, if for some reason it sounds like there is a jungle warfare in the background, it's only because this is cicada season in Maryland. And yeah, nothing I can do about that. I said these were going to be outside.
Yeah.
Here we go. On a 100-degree day. I'm already sweating. But the main thing I wanted to talk to you about with relationships was not only your relationship with Luis. Of course, that's going to be a big thing. But also the relationship that we've had, because we need to talk about me. I know I brought other people on here to talk about them, but in reality, like when I start to think about it, I'm like, that sounds boring. I need to be in this. But to show you, and I want to ask you some questions first. So like, we'll start with your relationship with Luis.
Okay.
Because in reality, that's going to be the more probably desired. Maybe no one cares about our friendship. Maybe it's not important. They're like, whatever. I want to know how have you been in a relationship for 13 years? That's probably the first thing someone says to you, right? So how have you been in a relationship for 13 years?
Well, I think I've always known that relationships, you work at them. I think Luis and I have grown together, and there's a sort of foundation before anything else. I think we were friends, and when we first met, he felt like family to me. He felt like a cousin. I know it sounds weird, but he did. It was this sort of familiarity that I've never felt with anybody that I'd met for the first time. So we had that instant connection where it was like family. We became really close friends, and then we started dating, and it kind of, we grew up together. Luis has never been somebody who has pushed me to do anything that I didn't want to do. So we dated for 2 years before I felt safe enough to be intimate with him in that way. And he never pressured me into doing anything. So he was always, I feel like, we were meant to work together, grow together, and become this thing after 13 years, and still have a relationship where he's my best friend, and we still talk to each other. We still enjoy each other's company so much. Like, it's still this thing, you know, that hasn't broken, that hasn't gotten boring or stale, because I don't know, there's a solid foundation or connection.
So what I took from all that was friendship.
Friendship, yeah.
So there's this like friendship you have with him. And I know that like when you're in a relationship, I'm assuming you would say this, it's not like you separate, like sometimes he's friend Luis and sometimes he's partner Luis. It's like,
that's my partner.
yeah, so it's always, but like it's the friendship that you've established in terms of like a different kind of intimacy that has really build that foundation, right? But of course you've never had problems in your relationship, I'm assuming, after.
That's the thing, but the problems have helped us grow into the people we are today because we want to work at it. It doesn't, because problems can make a relationship go stale quickly, where you're like, you know what, this is just not compatible for me anymore, I'm gonna walk away. But the problems we have had have never made us want to go and leave. Although I'm always the one that's like, oh, I'll leave. It's like almost like it makes me feel safe to say these stupid things. Although he knows and I know I will never leave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it makes me feel safe somehow.
Would you think that you guys are opposites? Like, you know when people say like opposites attract, or like, no, you should date someone who's similar to you, or no, you should date someone who's completely different. What do you think?
I don't know, because I know that you think we're opposites, but I think we're very different, but not so different.
But do you think it matters, like, or do you think that you should say like, look for an opposite or look for someone similar, or?
Yeah, I think you should look for somebody that has the things you don't have. So that you guys can give each other, take from each other, give each other, and grow together.
Do you think that's a natural thing that people like, connection that people get though, right? A lot of times in life you meet someone, you might have feelings for them or like them, and maybe it's because you don't understand at the moment, because when you first meet him, right? We'll go back to the beginning. You first meet him, did you like him right away?
So I first saw him when I was in 9th grade in a relationship, and I found him attractive instantly. So I was attracted to him physically, but he liked my friend, and I had just gotten out of a relationship, so not really. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I was like, oh my God, I instantly want this person, like that's the one. I was like, he's cute, but...
But you felt a draw.
Yes.
So do you think that draw, now going back to my original question so it hopefully makes sense, do you think that our initial draw is this energetic thing because it's attracting some kind of thing that you don't have that kind of fits into a puzzle in your life? Almost, not to make it sound like you need a person to complete you, but like in a way how they could add to your life because they're so different. Do you think that it could be this energetic thing? Because you don't know him when you first see him.
Yeah.
You don't know who this person is. He could be very similar to you. Or he could be this piece of crap that you don't even want to deal with the second you talk to him. You don't know. But you have this weird, not only physical attraction, right? Because you know you were like, oh yeah, he's cute or whatever, you like the way he looked, but you probably felt more than just that, didn't you? Or were you like, no, I'm strictly, that man was looking fine. I could
It was that familiarity that I said.
Yeah.
But I don't think like I know it's like after 13 years, you must know so much about relationships. I know how to make it work. I know what is both relationship versus not. Like I've told you multiple times in your stuff, like I'm like, I can see the red flags, you know what I mean, in other people's, but I think it's not fair to say that, oh, this is how you will know. Like this is a telltale sign, like an opposite is what you need. An opposite's gonna work for everybody. I just don't believe in that.
That's kind of the answer I was digging for.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think you should put a label if you're out there looking for something specific. I think you need to feel, look, I was not looking for anything. I did not want a relationship after the last one I had, because I had been in a relationship since I was in 8th grade until 10th grade. Like, I was like, I'm done. It's exhausting. I don't want one at all. I even prayed. I remember praying and being like, I just want to feel better, like my heart was aching.
Uh-huh.
I just want to feel better, and after high school, maybe in college, find someone that loves me at the same value level that I love them. And literally not even 2 months later, I met Luis. I was not wanting to be in a relationship. So I feel like when you are working on yourself, that's when you find someone.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to say that in 10th grade I was like working on myself, but I was like focusing on me.
Did you know what you were doing, or were you just doing it naturally?
No, I knew that I did not want to be in relationships. I was like, I started working out. The only way to cope for me was like bettering myself. In 10th grade, I was bettering myself. I was like, I would listen to music, I would dance, I would work out, I would drink a lot of water. Like I stopped drinking sodas too, I remember. It was weird. I was like improving. I just didn't want to feel sadness, so I covered it with trying to better myself. Isn't that crazy?
It's not.
A 10th grader?
Am I subtle brag? Like, no, but it is kind of like, it shows the character you have. Because it's something that it was innate. Like you didn't hit a point where you're like, well, I'm sure maybe that was a breaking point in some way where you're like, hey, this feels good to work on yourself, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, what was work on yourself for me until, I don't know, yesterday? Like, I don't know. But, so, this is something that I've seen in a lot of other relationships that I have either been in or witnessed in friends or people I know, is that they'll hit a point where they have an extremely toxic moment, or the toxicity then that they have in themselves starts to come out. And you see it in both people, whether something happens, maybe someone cheats, or maybe it's just this like nasty argument or something crazy happens that shows maybe a side of someone that you didn't know. Have you ever had that moment?
With Luis?
Yeah. Like a really toxic moment that made you go like, wow, I don't want to do this anymore. This person might be like this, or we're not working.
We have broken up twice in our relationship. Once was because he had gone to Venezuela to visit his mom, and he had a party, and she let him drink alcohol at 16, and he got like blacked out drunk, and there were pictures everywhere of him like on Facebook being this drunk 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And I was like, ew, like that's what what are you doing? And it was like, as a little mature, I don't know, junior? What grade were we in? 16, 10th grade?
Junior, yeah.
I'm like, I don't want that for me. And like, how dare you do that? You know, like disrespect me in that way. That we broke up. That could be like a thing that's like, oh. But then as soon as he got back, he was like, we need to talk. You can't just break up with me over the phone while I was in Venezuela. Like, we need to talk about it. And we instantly got back together because he was like, it's, you know, you find each other. And he's like, I mean, I didn't think there was anything wrong. It's normal in Venezuela to drink at a certain age, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but it is because I'm your girlfriend and there's pictures that are inappropriate, you hugging girls, and like, well, how am I supposed to know? It was a whole drama. I don't think, I can't speak for him, but I think for me, nothing that's been like legitimately that has made me want to break up with him.
So then what do you think when you see people who go through really toxic moments of like cheating in a relationship? We'll use that as a good example because that's a very common thing, unfortunately. What do you think when people want to stay together after a moment like that?
How do I say
Raw
this?
and authentic, your perspective.
I think it shows the lack of value, respect, and love that the person that was cheated on has on themselves. It is a huge sign of the disrespect that you're not allowing just to yourself, but like you're allowing this person to make you think that it's not going to happen again. You know, it's like once that has been broken, that trust, it's so disrespectful. And so it shows that you're disrespecting yourself.
I love the answer. I mean, because I know that you have, this is another reason, you have so many unique perspectives on things. And when I say unique, they're not like, oh, that's crazy. That's so weird. It's more like deep and introspective. Because you don't ever look at something like, oh, like he cheated on you, like he's a piece of crap. Like you're better than that, girl. You're more like, why don't you love yourself? Yeah. Like if you're going to stay with him, like why are you doing that? And that's another reason why I brought you on here, to use your wisdom and accolades for my channel. Let me give a little bit of a background on our history as friends. Because this is another thing. This is something that in my life, if anyone's watched any of my other videos, you know that I have had a plethora of unhealthy, toxic relationships as an adult, growing up too. And how they've been a huge learning point in my life to learn things about myself and, other people even. But the weird thing about having a friend for that long and having the standards that you have on relationships has taught me a lot about romantic relationships and the standards I should have in them. They can translate, which has been really helpful. But you and I have been through our own struggles in friendships. And even how we met is interesting, and how it almost starts off a bit in an unhealthy way. Not between me and you necessarily, but between Paula. So Paula had a friend who was interested in me, and we all hung out one day. It was actually Halloween night in 2009. I remember this. And Paula comes over with her friend, and we're hanging out, and that's when I thought to myself,
sorry.
It was interesting because that relationship ended up not really becoming anything. Like, I never really had feelings for this girl in that kind of way. However, there was a part of me that maybe led her to believe that I did have feelings for her. So it became a whole thing, a whole drama. And I think it was funny how we meet right away with you seeing toxicity that I can have in relationships immediately. And you got to see that many times after. And there was a pattern that I had with dating. So the second I would get a girlfriend, like be in an actual relationship, I would, mainly to completely stop talking to Paula and Luis and really all my friends for the most part. And a lot of it was because I felt like I had something I needed in this moment, and I had to devote all my time to it, because if this person wasn't happy, then I couldn't be happy. So Paul and I had some falling out things a little bit, where one particular relationship in general, which you'll get a chance to see that girl on here in later episodes, spoiler, but was that I completely stopped talking to Paula and Luis. And this is after hanging out with them all the time. Like, it was like more days out of the week than not, I would see them, and we were having tons of fun. Then all of a sudden, I'm gone. I disappeared.
We were like best friends, and then boom,
spending all this time together, and then I'm gone, and I'm with this girl 100% of my time. And let me get your perspective on that. And honestly, you don't have to worry about talking about anyone else. This is just me. Rip me apart.
No, this is the thing. I take all of relationships, no matter the label, very seriously. I'm a very serious person. That's why I think cheating is so disrespectful, because I'm very serious in that way. You don't do that, you know? And I take all my friendships very seriously. Like, if I decide to trust you in that way, it's like serious. And it's sort of like, it like means a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and we talked about this. It made me feel like I was being used. And I didn't like that. It's like we weren't real friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you were just using, it's like you needed this like girl energy in your life, and you used me for that.
Yeah. So here's the thing, in complete and total honesty, but in an unconscious way, that's true. 100%. Like, that was part of my lessons in growing and learning through relationships in life, was that I would use people to feel happy because I wasn't able to make myself feel happy, or I should say love, like self-love. So the reason why it's not black and white is because how I always looked at it, like, it wasn't like they weren't friends to me, like these people didn't mean anything. It's just that it shows when somebody has such a hole in themselves and they're looking for other people to help fill that hole, that they'll do these desperate things. It's almost like reminds me of an addict. How they'll shut off people in their life to chase a substance or something because they become so desperate for it. It was like that with me in romantic relationships because of love. So it was almost like my mind had a kill switch that I could turn off and run another direction. And like, obviously, my mind has changed since then. Probably. No, it has. But like, the thing was, is like, I got to see that as a pattern happen and happen and happen. And even when I thought I had kind of conquered it, I really didn't. And I got another lesson about learning about self-love, and really that's all that was teaching me the entire time. Now, of course, there's a part of me that's like, I don't even want to try to say like, oh no, I didn't care about my friends or whatever. Like, of course I did. But then it's really easy to also say like, well, then you wouldn't have done that. So it's a hard thing that still goes back and forth in my mind of like abandoning your friends pretty much for a relationship, which I've seen other people do as well. And usually then when the relationship ends, they come back. And they're always like, hey, like we're still cool. And then you got to deal with all that crap. But luckily for you, or for me, is you didn't just let me get away with it. So like you told me straight up, which I didn't want to hear back then, about being selfish and using people and all that stuff. And it really hurt because it was true. So it was an interesting journey that I had to learn through that aspect of relationships. And it showed me a lot too about if I'm willing to abandon my friendships, and I mean, it affected every part of my life, my relationship with my family, my job. If I'm willing to let a relationship hurt any of those aspects of my life, then the relationship isn't healthy.
Yeah.
And it's because I'm not healthy.
Yeah.
So it was this outward showing, but there's a part of you that we've talked about this too with forgiveness, that even though you might not always look at yourself as like someone who is so quickly and willing to forgive, in a way, you are, because you did. This wasn't like, oh, I crashed your car and then I paid for it, you got a new one, or like I owed you some money and didn't pay you back. This was like completely betrayal of trust in a relationship that you moved past. And obviously it wasn't like I had to show you things too. It wasn't just like, you know.
Right, because I felt that you cared for the friendship. It wasn't, even though you made me feel this way, I also felt like, if I felt like you were just like, yeah, and like just, you're single again, so let's be friends, I would have never taken you seriously. But I thought you cared about me, so it's like, of course.
Yeah.
And I think that is what speaks more than anything. I think it's, even though you may have done this or that unintentionally, because you have a good heart, so you don't want to do this to people.
No.
And I think that's why we're friends, because you're a good person.
Yeah.
Although if you do this again, bye.
That's also been said, but that is one of those things. I don't worry about that. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things, again, that Paul has taught me about relationships. And another one, too, was one of the reasons why I would get myself in this situation to begin with, was how quickly I would move into it. And not just quickly, like, everything was quick. The firsts were so quick. I mean, from sex to spending every waking moment with the person to even moving in with somebody. All these things happen like that.
Yeah.
And
that's a lot. I'm so much more of a slow burn kind of person. Like, what's the rush? You're going to spend your whole life with this person. Why are you rushing? Take it nice and slow and easy. Isn't that slow burn better? Like, I'm so much slower.
I think it's easy to, it should be easy to not move in with someone after a month. It should be easy to not spend every day with someone after a month, because usually when you have shit to do in your life. But this is the part that I think is the hardest for people when they're adults, that you told me this piece of advice that I used and I practiced last year, and it made me feel much better about myself, and that was taking time before you have sex in a relationship, before you become intimate. And when you had told me this forever, and when you first told it to me years and years and years ago, I was like, prude. Like, right.
I was like, I think you should take time before you get intimate with someone, like a long period, even a month or 3 months, I said, because by 3 months you see the true character of the person that you are dating. Because that's what happened to me. Like, I took 2 years, but that's because I needed to trust the person. Like, I feel like you should be able to really know and trust the person in order to want to be intimate, because you're not just being intimate, you're switching energies with each other. You're really intertwining your energies. And how do you know this person is not this toxic person that's going to bring you down with them, or you know what I mean? How do you know it's not just lust? How do you know it's true connection?
Yeah.
After 3 months, you will, because people, at first, you all put your best face forward, where you're just like, yeah, like, no, I go with the flow, you know, I'm just like chill and like whatever. And then they're like, no, you cannot drink, you cannot smoke, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Then you see the control, if it doesn't match with you.
You know what's funny is, like, I think the thing that turned me off to the whole 3-month rule in the beginning was 2 things. One, it was like, oh, I'm an adult, like, it's not a big deal, it's just sex. And the other thing was, like, why you gotta put a number on it? But let me tell you why it worked for me, because having that perspective, anyone out there is immediately like, why would I do that? The first thing was, just like you said, that is the best example. You really do get a chance to know someone. If someone thinks that they know somebody the same 1 week in 3 months, they're a fool. That is not how it works. If the person is the same from week 1 to 3 months, you got with a psychopath, you need to leave. Like, that is a crazy person. The 3 months is the number when people are like, well, why has it got to be 3 months? If you want it to be 6 months, or even...
Better.
Yes.
2 years. Better.
Never. Whatever.
Best.
Like, the best.
Virginity. Choose virginity. No, what's
3 months is a good... Oh, celibacy. Celibacy.
That's what it is.
3 months is a good number, because if you can make it past 3 months with someone, and this goes for a guy, girl, whoever you're going to date, whatever gender they are, they don't... If someone says, I'm not going to date you if you're going to wait 3 months to have sex with me,
Then you know.
There's your other problem. I can tell you right now, if a girl came up to me, no matter what stage in my life I was in, no matter how toxic I was, I would have respected it. I would have not left. And the only times I would have left is if I really didn't like the person.
If you leave, you're not really truly interested. And if
Exactly.
you're afraid that the person is going to leave you, then that's why you're having sex. Because you're desperate for to be loved instead of you loving yourself. Like, it shows so much in people's psychology to me.
Yeah, it really does.
I'm like, and I don't know what I did right in this world or in a past life to come with, maybe it's fear, maybe it's my psoriasis, that makes me maybe not feel safe to be intimate with certain people, and I've only felt safe with Luis, and that's my partner, and I love that. I really do love that about our relationship. But I know it is hard for a lot of women, men, to abstain from sex because they want to use it as a tool to, like, get this person to love them, when it's like, that isn't gonna happen.
Yes.
That's not gonna make you love anybody. That also isn't true connection.
Yes.
It's not true connection at all. It's a way to implement more connection into the relationship, a deeper sort of spiritual connection, but like true connection is with the person, getting to know them, sort of really becoming this thing together, and then implementing the spiritual sort of intimate connection. Because I view sex very spiritually. It's a very spiritual thing.
And that's, I think, the best way to look at something like that. It makes it more special and just like have more value to it. But you brought up psoriasis. We're going to get into that. We'll be right back after these commercials.
What is something that you were bullied for growing up that everybody wants now?
Mine's is for having a big butt when I was in the 8th grade, and I literally never had self-esteem issues. I had no problem with the way that I looked before I started the 8th grade, just because everybody was saying that I
And welcome back. So here's the next thing that you have had a struggle with. No one else that I know in my life has had this struggle, so I want you to talk about it. Talk about your psoriasis. First of all, what is it? Because there might be some people who don't know.
I still don't know. Just kidding.
You're like, huh?
Well, it's a skin condition that doctors like to say you cannot cure it. It's caused because your body is attacking itself. You want me to give that, or what do you want me to talk about?
No,
because
just
that's the bullshit doctors give you.
Well, you just say it how you want to say it. This is completely unfiltered. Just
Honestly,
say it how you want
at
to say
this point, I think psoriasis is a mixture of the food you eat, but mostly emotional trauma.
When did you first discover you had it? How old were you?
I was in middle school.
So then, what was your first what did you do about it at first? Because it ends up covering the majority of your body, right?
Yeah, but not immediately. When I first started discovering, I had like some weird stuff in my head that was like bumpy, and I was like, oh, what is that? I'm gonna ignore it. Then I started to get like in my elbow like some psoriasis, and I was like, is that skin cancer? I'm gonna ignore it. It's like I didn't think it was skin cancer immediately, because then that's when after whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what this is. It scared me. Like you know when you see something so scary to you and you're so young that you're like, your stomach turns and you're like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah.
Okay. I ignored it. I didn't want to tell my mom. But at a certain point, when it started to I see more and more, I was like, okay, I'm concerned. I'm going to tell my mom. And I told her, and she was like, well, go to the doctor and check it out. At this point, we didn't have insurance because we were immigrants in this country, and it was hard for them to give you health insurance.
Yeah.
And the money and stuff, we didn't have it. So we went to a mobile doctor that's literally a doctor that's in a sort of a bus, but it's big. It's not like this tiny bus, and they have like doctors there. And they would park at my elementary school, Deerfield Run, shout out.
I was gonna do like a sign. I was gonna do like the whitest sign.
So we went after school, and they examined me, and the doctor says to me, and my mom in front of me, that she thinks that it could be skin cancer, but she's not sure, so she's gonna take a sample. And I start crying immediately. My mom, I can tell, is very scared, but trying to hide it, but I can tell she's scared.
Yeah.
So it was, and then we go home. I'm so upset. She tells my dad. My dad's very concerned, but he's like, how could this doctor tell that in front of her face? Like, we need to get somebody that's like professional, blah, blah, blah. And that was expensive. So that's the whole, it was like a lot of just unfortunate events coming together. So then I went to a dermatologist, and he was like, it's psoriasis. The medicine that we can give you, they're creams because you're so young. We're just going to give you like steroid creams, and they're really expensive. So he gave me a bunch of test tubes, and that's how I started to manage it throughout high school. Then a little bit after high school, we were able obviously to get insurance at this point and throughout high school, and I would get medicine through that, but they had to do like a physical checkup on me, and I had gotten to the point where it was time for a physical because they couldn't refill my medicine and I needed it desperately. So I was like, okay, I don't really want to go to a physical. I don't know why. I was just like, ugh. But okay, fine. They couldn't get me in for like a month because it was like a shitty doctor.
Yeah.
So this is at this point when I already had started dating Luis. He had concerns about the steroid creams I was using. He was like, I've done research. Steroid creams are terrible for you. They can cause skin cancer. All of these bad things can happen to you. And I'm like, he told me everything. I'm like, I don't need to hear that. I'm literally the one that I don't need to hear that. Like, this is the only thing helping me. Like, I don't want to hear it. So this is the point that he could slide in and be like, how about you try this natural thing? I found shea butter that is very moisturizing. How about you try this and that is natural? So I kind of started using that, and it kind of helped me that I canceled the doctor's appointment. I didn't go back. I stopped taking steroid creams because of that. And I started to just do the natural stuff. Because as soon as I had that little break in between waiting for the doctor and for them to refill my stuff, my psoriasis went everywhere. That's when it spread out everywhere for the first time.
Were you like at that point in your life, were you super stressed about something?
I was really stressed about not having the medicine because I knew like if I didn't use it for a week, it would like start going crazy.
Yeah.
I was really it was a stressful time, yeah. And it went everywhere to the point that like when I had to go back to college and I was taking dance, I had to take a semester off dance because I couldn't move.
Oh, because it was painful.
It was painful. It went everywhere, and it's extremely painful. Did I not mention that? It's psoriasis. Look it up. It's extremely painful. The skin dries up to a level that you can't move.
Oh, wow. Without it like breaking and bleeding, right?
Sometimes it breaks and bleeds, yeah.
Wow.
And it itches, and you break it and bleed it on purpose because it itches. Anyways, so I started to naturally heal. And that's because I'm like, I'm not doing steroids again. I mean, look at me. It literally did this to me because it's like a Band-Aid covering it.
Yeah.
And then I found a medical medium, which is like a natural way of healing through foods. And that really has helped tremendously. But now I'm like, Luis has always said this to me. He's like, I think it's also like stress and stuff, and I mean they've always said that, like your nervous system. And I got a medium reading recently, and I wanted to ask, like, is there anything that I need to stop eating or doing? What else can I do to help heal my body? And she said that psoriasis is a response, a spiritual, emotional thing as well, where you feel like you have to protect yourself from the outside world. And that made so much sense to me because since I was little, I've been such an emotional child, and I don't know how to cope with that, with being able to feel everybody and like just being the sensitive person. And I kind of, I guess, always done that. Like, yeah.
So then tell me about the self-image issues that psoriasis have caused. and
So
how
much.
you've and what you've done to overcome a lot, because you have overcome a lot of them.
Yeah. So much.
So like,
So
so when
much.
you were young though, and you first starts to go in your body, and you're in a weird age too. Middle school is a weird age for image.
Yeah.
How does it affect you then with image? What do you do? Do you hide it? What do you do?
Yes.
So at all costs, always hiding it.
Hiding it.
So
Are you
even in
kidding?
a 100-degree day like this, hiding it.
Yeah. Are you kidding? I felt disgusting.
Wow.
Unappealing. Like, who would want to, I was so young, you know?
Do you feel like that made you almost like, do you think those words and the way you looked at yourself harmed yourself more physically?
Yes.
Did you do anything to overcompensate besides like cover it?
I think I'm learning now at this age to undo a lot of stuff that I did because of psoriasis, but also because I didn't know who I was or what I needed as a child. So I overcompensated by being this sort of like, don't f with me kind of person. You know what I mean? Like, don't you even, like, kind of aggressive, kind of like, just, I felt that would protect me, like kind of protecting myself.
Yeah, I see what you mean. So then how did you overcome this image? Because I see you now sitting here, and we've known each other for a long time. If this was years ago, you would not be wearing this. So what did you do to get past that part?
I think I just started to realize that nobody cares as much as I do. Nobody looks at the little imperfections I have in my body as much as I do. Nobody looks at me the way I look at me. Like, the perception of me is not what I see in me, you know, because it's outside of me. People don't care. People don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care. They don't see you differently because of it. They don't care. They look, they stare rudely, but it's just because they don't know any better.
Someone's like,
no, because that's the most uncomfortable thing, I think. Growing up, it's like the way that people will just kind of like stare at you.
and you can see them looking at your body.
Yes, and that, as a sensitive person, was the most uncomfortable moments of my life. I think that's when I would be like, you know, just like tough face, even though I was like, this is humiliating.
Yeah. I know there's a couple things I've seen you do that have been the most outwardly obvious. And the first one is you not hiding yourself anymore in general, and you posting pictures on social media of yourself, of not hiding your psoriasis and talking about it openly. Because when we first met, I have a story, quick story. When we first met, and this is maybe within a couple months of knowing each other, I didn't know Paula had psoriasis. You know, Paula's 17, I'm 18. At this point, it was pretty much everywhere, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we're sitting down one day on Paula's living room with a bunch of people over who all knew she had psoriasis, but I didn't. And I remember I see something, I don't know, it was on your knee, or I don't know where I saw something, and I thought, oh, like, are you okay? Like, I'm like, do you get cut, or like, do you have a...
I think you said, like, is it a rash, which is
I was like, is that
triggering.
Is that a rash? We're not always very socially aware at every age, okay? And right away, like, I remember the whole room got like, like everyone's butthole got really tight. And I think you just said that it's psoriasis. And I didn't know what that was, but I was like, whatever, you're inferior. I get it. Okay. Great life coach. But yeah, I mean, I remember you just telling me, like, it was kind of like, but it was weird. I mean, it was the first, you didn't want to even tell me. Like, and not that, like, you should just, like, you meet someone and they're like, hi, I'm Eric and I'm a vegan. You're like, I didn't ask.
Right.
You know, but you're like, hi, I'm Paula, I have psoriasis. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
But it was weird that I didn't know for a couple months. And one of it was because you always wore, like, long sleeves and stuff like that. And me, like, I'm very observational, so I probably knew this, but I also know, like, generally, like, don't always ask people that, but I guess I had a momentary slip of, what is that on you? But you didn't care. And I think at that point, it kind of was like, well, at least now Eric knows, you know? Yeah.
Because we were, like, hanging out all the time. Like, I guess he's going to be a friend that we're going to hang out with all
Yeah,
the time.
I guess I might as well just stop wearing a bodysuit every time I see him.
Well, you know what? That reminds me of just, like, me wearing these things in the summer and people being like, aren't you hot? Like, that was so triggering to me all the time. When people be like, aren't you hot? Aren't you hot? People say these things to people without knowing. Obviously, nobody knows. It's like, aren't you hot? You're like, wearing a hoodie in 100% weather.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. I like wore like sweaters that seemed more flowy, you know?
But it is still kind of funny that somebody would ask that, because it's like,
Yeah.
don't they think you know it's hot?
It's like mind your business.
It's almost kind of like, oh, I didn't realize that, and then you take it off.
Right, and I would be like, no, I'm actually chilly. Like, I get cold very easily. Was my freaking excuse. Instead of just being like,
Well, if you're covering it, you're
Not
probably not
caring.
going to tell them, like,
Yeah.
oh, it's because I have psoriasis, because at that point.
yeah.
So the next thing that you did, the next biggest outward thing that I saw, was you completely changed your diet. 100%. Went hardcore, and inspired me to do the same. And so talk about that and what led you to do that.
So the medical medium. Anthony Williams' books are amazing. He talks about different illnesses, not just psoriasis, like a bunch of different illnesses. And it's a plant-based diet would be best for healing. I mean, just take out all the processed stuff, all the added sugars and oils and stuff like that will heal your body.
Yeah.
So I heard that, and it obviously makes sense. And he's a medium, so I respect spirituality so much more. So I was like, I'm gonna try that. And when I did, it's crazy how psoriasis heals too. It goes in cycles, so there could be times like that I could be shedding, right? And then this is after shedding. You remember yesterday?
Yeah.
I was shedding.
Yeah.
This is after shedding.
Yeah.
Weird, right? Your body does that, and it like layers. It's sort of weird how psoriasis heals. I've never seen it heal before. So I was like, I started to see it heal, and that instantly made me want to go vegan. I was already, I think, wanting to be vegan, because Luis was like into wanting to be vegan, and I didn't like red meat. So we started first taking out that, then taking out cheese, because cheese is beautiful, amazing, stunning, and smart, but it's just horrible for the body. So yeah, that's what made it do it. That's what made me do it.
So it's interesting that you did that, because that got me doing the exact same thing. And it's really funny, talk about skin, because I have eczema on my hands. Like, had like, it's eczema is like a minor form of psoriasis. And I remember when I started doing that, I did the exact same thing. First I cut out red meat, and then dairy, and then finally I was completely vegan. And by the time that happens, I have no more eczema on my hands. And like, I generally feel my stomach issues improved. I generally felt so much better. So it was this interesting kind of like way of feeding your body with the right nutrients that really helps your spiritual development. Because it's not just like, oh, I look better, so I feel better, but it's like, no, you actually genuinely feel better. You feel more clear, more concise, you feel more conscious and aware of what's going on. So, thank you for sharing. And we'll be back again after, I was going to say something. These commercials, we'll be back.
So in college, right, there was and well, it's where it started. My mom, and I'm sober, and
anyway, we are back, and I want to talk to you about some individual spirituality, and I want to get really weird, because out of all the people I know, he is the most fun to get, I don't know why I'm calling it weird, but weird, unique, different, out there with spiritual beliefs and spiritual practices and stuff. And there's so many things that I can bring up with you, so we'll see if we can get them all in. So the first thing I want to talk about, because it's also a business you have, is tarot. And if anyone doesn't know what tarot is, you can explain it.
Tarot is cards that are very beautiful, like the art in it's very beautiful, but they have meanings when you learn to read them. They all have meanings. I mean, if you look at the pictures, you can even just through the pictures kind of create a meaning, and they all have a message for you. It can be a way to tap into whatever it is you believe in, if it's a religion or if it's just spirituality, you're tapping into something that is talking back to you if you're asking it questions.
So what made you get into it then?
I've always been a person that is a seeker of knowledge, a seeker of answers, a seeker of more. And I've always been into astrology. Started to learn astrology to learn more about myself and reading my own chart. Then I started to see tarot readings on YouTube and started to pick a card. It would pick a card, and I would pick a card, and it would like answer the questions that I was asking, to the point that I was like, I should get my own and do it myself and learn this thing. And that's how.
And you learn just by doing it constantly, right? Just by playing with the cards, like
with playing with the cards, looking at the pictures, but also like learning what each card means with like the meaning that is known. You know what I mean?
yeah. So like the general meaning of it.
Yes.
And then, but you put your own intuitive spin onto a lot of these things.
Yes, like I studied it and put my own intuition on it.
Which makes it in a way more special because you kind of get a chance to be like, I know what this means by the ancient teachings, but this is what you can, in a way, psychically pick up on what it would mean for somebody or how they might mean together, right?
Yeah,
like two cards would have it like when the relationship the two cards would have
together,
next to each other, right? Yeah.
Also, I in my head will think that the infinity sign to me means karma, to me.
Okay.
So if I see the infinity sign come up, that means something karmic. If I say that the moon means emotions and intuition, but also something else, like that it means just to me, then it comes up. You know, I put meaning, my own meaning to things, and that's how I can talk to it.
But that's kind of how tarot works too, because the cards are yours. They're your cards. The cards have your energy and your meaning onto them. So when they're drawn, either by you or somebody picks a card or something and you're doing a reading for somebody, it's not like it's like you mess it up because of the intuitive reading you put on it. It's meant to happen because the cards know the meaning that you put on them. So it still happens in this divine way.
Right.
So then you even did this thing where, don't you do card readings on Etsy?
Yeah.
So generally, like, and I know like tarot is just, to me, when I look at you with tarot, it's just a manifestation of your mind, of your spirituality. It's obviously not the only thing that you do. So you do a lot. But so this is a general question. And this is something I want to ask everybody. What does spirituality mean to you? There's no wrong answer.
To me, it means play. That's how I tap into it. That's the meaning I have for
Play.
it. It's play.
So like how so?
I do a lot of different things when I want to connect to something. I don't like to put any sort of label or anything like that, but it's sort of connecting to yourself, back to yourself, or I love to believe in my ancestors and my grandparents and connecting with my guides. It's a plaything. It's you should play. You should play. Wow, but that makes it sound so not serious, you know?
No,
but it isn't. It's this thing that we all have inside of us, and it's tapping back into that.
Yeah.
By letting your guard down. When you play, you don't have your guards up. You're having fun. You're flowing. I don't mean play like da-da-da-da-da-da. You know, I mean like dancing. I mean like painting. That's for me playing because it's so much fun to me.
Yeah.
That's like walking in the woods. That's also just sitting there and just being high on shrooms. You know?
Yeah. I mean, literally, like, out of all the years I've known you and we've talked about things like this, I've never heard you explain it like that. And actually, I love that answer. Because the way that you say it is like, it's not this super serious thing of like, oh, like, it's gotta be like this.
It's not.
If it's not like that, then it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work for you. Exactly. There's no rules.
We all have it inside of us. What do you think? If you believe it, that you have a soul, that is tapping into the spirituality. Because you have a soul, therefore it's inside of you. Therefore, lay your guards down. Don't have expectations and enjoy your time doing whatever it is that connects you back to you. And then you will feel things. You will know things.
Part of my own spiritual growth that I've never talked about on anything, maybe I have, involves you and Luis and being friends with you guys. And it's like, if I were to write a autobiography, which I would probably be that person. Can you imagine, like, if you got to write your own thing? No.
Honestly, I feel like I should at this point.
Yeah, it would be great. But like, I would over exaggerate mine a little bit, but you know what I mean? You gotta sell it. You gotta sell it. Like, and then the dragon came and he gave me the powers. But anyway, so like, yeah, part of the growth that I would always explain about myself was spending more time with you guys. Now, it really got me into this depth more of like the beginnings of trying to think more about the bigger picture of things. Now, like, I was always open-minded, like even as a kid, about ghosts or like what religion was and what spiritual. I was always open-minded, but I never cared. Like, I never really cared that much. I'd always just be like, whatever, I want to play this game. Play. I was doing it all along. But when I met you guys, and especially me and you, because we would talk about this all the time, it kind of pushed me in this way of like experimenting with different things. Like, even things that I still might not hold on to, but even as simple as like sage, something like that. Like at first it's cool, and it's like an aesthetic thing, and it's like, oh, right, this is cool. But then when you start to put meaning on it and you start to learn about it, you start to feel more like it's part of a routine or what I believe or the growth that I've came through. And that's a small example. It's literally a burning bundle of grass. But like ultimately it was more about thinking deeper and thinking more about introspectively and into yourself. And this is going to be my favorite thing to say forever, but this is another cool thing that I can bring up. Paula asked me this question when I was maybe 20 years old, maybe 21 years old, and it was, do you love yourself, right? I've never been asked that question in my life, nor had I asked myself that question, to the point where I didn't even know how to answer it, right? And she's not asking a 5-year-old, she's asking an adult. Not that a 5-year-old actually probably would give it a better answer. She's asking me at like 21 years old, do I love myself? This is while I was going through a breakup. I think someone had broken up with me and I was really upset. And I didn't even know what to say. I think like your natural response is to be like, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Is that, it's like, that's, yes is the right answer, right? Like that's what I'm supposed to say. But in reality, the answer was no. And that question always stuck with me in my head. And from then on out, even though I would go plenty of times of forgetting about that, you know, it would always be a cycle. But even if it was more not thinking about loving myself and less thinking about loving myself, even that small bit of just like, imagine the scale and there's like 99% not thinking about self-love, 1% thinking about self-love. Well, that scale used to be 100% not thinking about self-love. So it starts with that planted that seed, and over time that seed has grown. So it's pretty incredible to see what just planting a seed or saying something somebody can do, even though that might not have been your intention. You were just asking the question because you're like, I need to know this. Like it's part of, like you were thinking more right now when you're asking that question.
I was thinking like you don't.
Yes.
So
and you probably wanted to hear me say it too, but of course I didn't. I was probably like, yeah, idiot. Like, of course I do. Who are you?
Because I wanted to be like, if you loved yourself, then you would see all these things.
Yes.
And like,
and it was that to me really kind of started the, like, not the beginning. The spiritual journey starts, you know, a long time ago, but of me realizing something about spirituality in that moment. And it kind of felt like this eye-opening pop of like, oh wow.
I think what's important about our dynamic is that I'm a girl and you're a boy. Because you have more respect, more love. You just have more easy connection with women.
Yeah.
And you have always known, you've always been easily tapped into this thing even though you don't know that you are.
Yeah.
Into the spiritual thing. You are very, very, very perceptive, very intuitive. You understand and see things like other people don't.
Yeah.
And now you are teaching me or helping me in ways that I would have never thought. You know how at the beginning of your spiritual journey, I was helping you kind of notice things?
Yeah.
Now you're helping and guiding me in things as well.
Comes full circle.
And it's a sort of dynamic that it goes like this.
You're right. You're absolutely right. You kind of like always get a chance to, and you and I have some similarities. We're very like interested in social dynamics.
So interesting.
We are gossipers and we love talking about social interactions with people and how we see people in the world.
Because we're perceptive.
Yes. And we've always been like, and it's a fun way of doing it. We're not actual like assholes, but like, well, maybe not. But
it's a fun way of doing it.
yes, it's a fun way of doing it. But a lot of it is like, we're also so different. And we've taught a lot of things. We've taught each other a lot through pissing each other off, for lack of a better term, or challenging the person. It's not like we do it because we just like to fight with each other, but we have this thing a lot of times where we've had a lot of, what's a good word for it? Challenge, back and forth, or conflict even with one another.
It's kind of a power struggle.
Yes, but a lot of it's because we're so different and we have so many different perspectives. But it makes me learn this thing if I take that, because it hasn't hurt our relationship. It's only made our foundation as a relationship stronger. One thing that it really taught me was other people. It's the people that challenge you the most that you can learn the most from. And sometimes in our way, it's like a friendship way. It's a challenge. It's not a person who's challenging me who doesn't care about me, but it's still something very challenging. And you're not a gasser upper. You're not someone who's going to be like, I'm going to make you feel good even if you're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You're like, you're always going to say it how it is. And I know not everyone can be that way, and I'm not expecting everyone to be that way, because I'm not that way a lot of the times. But to see that really shows me that when something happens in your life with another person, and the other person might really just like strike a nerve with you or make you angry, and it might just be how they are, what they say, their energy, that it's a teacher. And like, again, it's better being a real teacher because it's through a friend who's not going to go anywhere. But it's like, it really showed me a lot about being able to adapt and not trying to be so controlling of things, because I have that personality too, where I'm like, here I am, I'm in charge, let's do it. And to have someone else who's like, here I am, I'm in charge, let's do it. We're like, how? And it really makes me.
That's why I was bringing that up. It's like, it's a different dynamic. I have had power struggles with my girlfriends before, and it's ended in complete chaos and destruction.
So it's kind of like,
because it's two of the same energy.
Yeah.
We have two opposite energies, because you have masculine energy, I guess. I mean, we all have feminine and masculine energy, but you bring a different energy because you're a dude. And
what's
you're
the person I am? The person I am is carrying more masculine energy. The person you are is carrying more feminine energy. So like, it's easier for us to fit the mold of the other person.
To fight, but to make it like,
work.
Okay, we're growing from this.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you're teaching me this, I'm teaching you this kind of energy.
But it shows also where you and I are good and healthy. And another thing is that we have always been platonic friends. So that's something that a lot of people have a hard time with. And I've known it's not like a shameful thing, but it makes it easy because you and I have always just been friends. Always. So it's like we have the very unmuddied relationship that we can easily move through things and work through things without having to worry about this awkward back history of these other sets of emotions. But also, that's what happens a lot of times when you put masculine and feminine energy together, where you put two people of opposing sexes together. Sometimes it could be like, oh, it creates this weirdness. But for you and I, it was always weird. It was so natural for it to not be. Maybe that's why you were my mother in a past life or
That's
something.
what I'm saying. It's like this past life connection, and it's like we both decided to come in this thing and be friends.
Yeah. And it works out for the most part.
Help each other grow. Because it's not, I think it's important for people to understand. I think the mistake a lot of people make is that they put more importance on their romantic relationships than they do their friendships.
Or they don't treat their friendship like a relationship.
And
Because
it's like it is, and you can learn from your friends the same kind of things that you could possibly learn from a relationship and not be so destructive.
I mean, that's exactly what happened with me, romantic relationships, and having you. Imagine me going up to a girl who I'm starting to date, and I say to her, yeah, my friend Paula taught me a lot about romantic relationships. And they're like, how'd she do that?
We can't do that.
I know, but I'm like, I wouldn't use those words, but it's true.
But it's because you should, that's when you go and you're like, my friend Paula and Louise, because I've seen their relationship.
No, I know, but even you as an individual. But I'm just saying, it's like the point to show like that it's not, we don't have rules. You know what I mean? We're not like, it's not this, to us it's not weird. It's like
I think
you being...
That's the most beautiful thing of our friendship, and I think like that's going to be beautiful for you to teach whoever comes along and joins, you know?
Yeah.
That it doesn't have to be this weird thing.
Exactly, it doesn't. It's a good filter. Maybe too good, so calm down. So, I feel like this has been a good and successful first interview, talk, thingy, whatever it is, doesn't matter. No rules. Do you have anything else you want to say? You want to close out with?
I would just like to say the journey I'm on right now is just trying to heal from the little things that I didn't even realize I carried on from childhood and became the sort of person that isn't the root or the real me. And I'm kind of healing and trying to take those things off that don't suit me anymore, because I don't need to. I think we all do that as children. We think we should we act a certain way to protect ourselves because maybe we didn't feel protected by our parents and become this thing that we're not. And I think it's important to try to undo that.
Wise words. Wise words. Would expect nothing less. There was no pressure. It was like, you better say the wisest thing ever right now. This is my channel. Don't mess with me. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next week, probably. No promises.